Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Superintendents Webcast in September. I've just recently come from a KASA meeting on building up and sustaining the profession that was held here in Frankfurt, and left that meeting to come over and take part in the Superintendent Webcast. But a lot of good energy and work happening from a group of superintendents and teachers and administrators really interested in supporting the teaching profession. We had Representative Tipton there as well to help bring the message to the legislature. So I'm excited about the work that will be coming out of that, but more to come on that for sure. We have a really full agenda for you this afternoon, so we'll do our best to move quickly through that. It includes some updates from our friend Dr. White from the Department of Public Health, just with some updates on where we are with COVID-19. We'll review some of what's happening in our flood impacted districts and a visit that we had to that region. Tony's got communication updates. We'll hear about the Kentucky United We Learn Council and really an update on United We Learn more broadly, along with hearing from you about innovative practices that are happening in your district. So I'll just ask you in advance to start thinking about that. What are some innovations that you are leading in your community, your districts? We often get asked about what are Kentucky districts doing that's really leading edge or changing education. And so it's great for us to have that information so we can talk about the things that are happening in your communities. So we'll ask for that information from you. We've got Dr. Darnell over to talk about some licensure and effectiveness updates, some shifts in how you can become licensed and struggles that we've had around licensure practices and how those are changing. So Dr. Darnell will cover that. Mickey Ray is on to provide an update from the Office of Teaching and Learning and resources that they are rolling out. And then we'll end with question and answer. So we've got a really full agenda, a lot to get through. So we'll jump right in and bring Dr. White on. Dr. White, are you here to finally declare victory over COVID?
I would say that we have COVID on the run. That's as
All
close as
right.
I'll get. That's as close as I will get. Thank you, Dr. Glass, for the introduction. I didn't have a slide on this, so I thought this would be as good a place as any. I just wanted to remind folks about testing, that the testing is available. It is out there, and I think we've put it in the Monday message. Y'all know how to do the ordering, so please use those tests. We have guaranteed through the end of the year. We don't know if we're going to have it after that. We think we will, but we don't want to promise something we can't come through on. But so please take advantage of the testing that's available for your students, for your staff, and for family members. So I'm going to go through just a couple of real quick things with one real message for today. The next slide is from last week, and it's the purple slide that you've seen 1,000 times. I just wanted you to see we are still having cases of COVID, and we also know that those numbers are very much lower than what's really happening because of all the tests that people are doing at home. Those home tests are not reported to us. As if you've done one at your house, you haven't reported it to us. So we don't know the true number of positive and negative tests that we're having now. These are the ones that have been reported to the department, and you can see kind of a plateauing there with the 12,830 for that particular week that was reported there. The next slide, I don't know how I got the 2 weeks ago slide in here, but the next slide shows you, again, a plateauing. The blue line is the number of COVID patients in the hospital. So since about the middle of July, that has been up and down, but just about the same. We are still hospitalizing people because of COVID. It does still happen. We are still having deaths because of COVID. That does still happen. Fortunately, the number of Kentuckians in the hospital are dramatically reduced if you compare that blue line over the last 2 years. Again, fortunately, the number of people in the ICU is greatly decreased, and then our folks on a ventilator is even lower. So we definitely have that to be thankful for. The next slide I just put in there, I'm pretty sure it's posted somewhere on your website. I know, again, we've put that in the Monday message. These are the recommendations that we make for people. If you are positive for COVID and have symptoms, this is what you do. If you're positive and don't have symptoms, this is what you do. And if you've been in close contact, this is the best way that you can protect others. So that's on our website now. That's something that you have access to. So if anyone's unsure, what I've told y'all before, I just snapped a picture of that. I have it on my phone. So whenever someone texts me and gives me a scenario, what should I do? I have that ready. I can just send that to them and say, these are the recommended guidelines at this point in the COVID pandemic. The next slide is a new slide you haven't seen. Y'all know I like color, and I thought this might be interesting to you. So this is on the CDC website, and this is Region 4. Region 4 for HRSA is it's kind of the SEC this side of the Mississippi River, but you add North Carolina on. So it's North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Kentucky. And what those different color bars, and I know it's rather small, but each bar is a week. So it starts on the far left with June the 11th, and then the bar on the far right is the week of September 10th. And these are the reports that the CDC gives us for our region and what types of variant you have. So if you look back there, June the 11th, that teal colored bar, that darker teal colored bar was BA5. The lighter teal color bar above that was BA4, and then you had some other BAs above that. As you march through the summer to the right of the screen, you can see that over 95% of the COVID virus that is being isolated and sequenced in the southeast region of the United States is over 95% of it is BA4 and 5. And the reason that's important is because of the new booster. Up until this time, any injection you got that was either the primary series or any of the boosters were all boosters that were made toward what's called the native COVID virus, what we had at the very beginning, because that's what we had at the beginning to make the vaccine to approach. Now we've got over 95% of it is BA4 and BA5. So the new bivalent booster or the Omicron booster or whatever you want to call it, the new one is what I'm just telling people. The new one does have the ability to attack the BA5 and the BA4 in a way that we've never had before, because when the vaccine was developed, these two variants didn't even exist. These Omicron variants didn't exist. So the next slide just kind of breaks it down for you if you have questions about the new booster. So both Pfizer and Moderna have developed their own Omicron boosters, and it attaches, or it goes after the component of the spike protein, which is not for BA4 and 5, which is not in the vaccine that we've been giving up until this point. It's a single dose only booster. How often are you going to have to have this? Well, what the thinking is right now is for the average younger healthy adult, we are hopeful that this will be a once-a-year booster, just like you get a once-a-year flu booster. However, people over the age of 50, people with autoimmune disease, people with other medical issues may down the road benefit from having another one of these. We just don't know at this point in time. But what we do know at this point in time is if you've already had a primary series and you're over 12, you can get this Omicron booster in Pfizer. If you're over 18, you can get this Omicron booster for Moderna. So when school started, I got a lot of calls about people saying, can we get the older booster starting into school even though we're under 50? The beauty of this new Omicron booster is it is for everybody in those two age ranges I just mentioned, depending on whether it's Pfizer or Moderna. And anybody can get this as long as they're above that age group. So it doesn't matter if you had to have had the primary series. And after that, it doesn't matter if you've had 3 shots, 4 shots, 5 shots, however many shots you've had, if it's been at least 2 months since you had any type of shot, primary series or booster, or if it's been 2 months since you last had COVID-19, you can get this Omicron booster. So they're out there. We started getting shipments of them late last week, and they are going out every day to different pharmacies that have that availability to give the Omicron vaccine. The next slide I made last week, showing you how you could go on our COVID website, look at the top bar under vaccine, and click the button, tap it again, Tony, and it shows that it's vaccines.gov. Back up, sorry. So that light blue bar there will take you to vaccines.gov. And so different pharmacies and different people that have this vaccine can go into vaccine.gov and post that they have the vaccines available. I made this slide figuring by the time I gave this presentation, this would be up to date. I will tell you, just before we came on, I looked in Frankfurt and it only listed one pharmacy as having the bivalent or the Omicron booster. And I happen to know that there's another pharmacy that has it because I've got my appointment. Is today Tuesday? I've got my appointment Thursday to get my bivalent shot. And they're not listed on the vaccines.gov website. But as time goes on, you should be able to go to that website and you should be able to find who's got the vaccine and when you can schedule an appointment. So it's just like the other doses that you've gotten in the past. You contact that pharmacy, you go through whatever system they have for you to make an appointment, whether it's calling for an appointment or going online, and you can get the bivalent or the Omicron booster. You can also get that at the same time you get your flu shot. So this is an excellent opportunity. It's fall. It's time for your flu shot anyway. So this is an opportunity for you to get your flu shot and your Omicron booster all at the same time. And those are out there. They're available for you. I wanted to show you this next slide, and I found it very impressive. This is from the CDC. This is not Kentucky. This is the nation. And this is looking between April of this year and July of this year. The purple line at the very bottom is the incident rate per 100,000 population of deaths from COVID. The purple line are people who have had the primary series and at least 2 booster doses. The solid dark blue line at the bottom are people who've had the primary series and 1 booster dose. The dotted dashed line is people who've had the primary series only. And then the black line at the top is the incidence rate of death per 100,000 of people who have not been vaccinated. So I want you to see this because we declare every day here through the State Department for Health between 14 and 25 people a day still dying of COVID. They're mostly older people with multiple health issues, not always, but mostly. But they were exposed to it somewhere, somehow, some way. So I just wanted to put that information in front of you. So for those of you who are interested in the vaccine, it's available. It's out there. I'm getting mine. I'm recommending everybody I know get mine. My husband's getting his tomorrow. I think this is another way that we're not only going to protect ourselves, but we're going to protect those that are most vulnerable in our community. So I am available for questions either now or whenever Dr. Glass tells me to.
Thank you, Dr. White. A question that I have for you, the slide that you showed that showed kind of the prevalence of COVID over time, where we had the spikes, then it receded, and they had another big spike, and it receded. And so now we're in kind of this phase where it seems to be moving up and down. And I guess I'm asking you to sort of prognosticate out ahead. Is this what we should expect in terms of living with COVID now that we're in this endemic phase where it's going to maintain at this level? Or what do you think we should expect 6 months, a year, 5 years from now? What does this look like with COVID being part of life on Earth now?
Well, the more people we get vaccinated, the less likelihood for variants to develop. But variants will develop, just as the reason that you have to have a flu shot every year is there's a different variant of the flu shot or the flu vaccine that infects people. And so, yes, I think we're going to see peaks and valleys, and so that's why I think there will be a need, at least annually, to have some type of a booster shot. And so the folks that do this development, like they do with the flu, they look at the southern hemisphere. They're having a nasty flu season in Australia right now. So we are really trying to push the flu vaccine now that we've got more people. We had hardly any flu in 2020. Well, that's because nobody left their house hardly. And we didn't have as many kids in school, which is where that's always spread. So we know we're going to have more flu, and then with a more virulent flu. Virus, or sorry, my COVID brain is still not quite working yet. I'm not quite back to where I used to be. So that variant is going to be a little more difficult this year. So if we can get people to start thinking of COVID in the same way that they do flu, and try to get more regular vaccination and continuing those things. If you're sick, stay home, wash your hands, all of the things that we already know, but we've kind of not really paid that much attention to in the past. This is all the more reason that it's so critically important for us. And are we going to have another Delta peak or an Omicron peak? I have no idea. I just think we prepare, and that's why we get as vaccinated and as careful as we can be.
Great, thank you. Another question that has come up is we have a number of people, especially working in schools. We're seeing high absence rates with students and staff because of outbreaks that are happening in the community, so people get sick. And so normally our schools are hovering 95, 96% or higher in terms of attendance. I've heard stories of some communities that are far below that, 70, 80%. And really it's variable from community to community, but generally lower attendance right now than what we typically see in a normal year. And a lot of folks are attributing that to spreading of COVID around. Of course, we don't have the firm numbers as far as cases because a lot of people are using home tests, as you mentioned. With a lot of people having been infected with COVID and then gotten over it, there's a period of sort of natural immunity that you have following that wanes, and then you can become reinfected again. So if a teacher or a staff member is working in a school building and they've had COVID, they've had the shots, but they're sort of continuously exposed to COVID and their body's fending it off, what is that doing from an immunological perspective? Just the ongoing exposure to COVID once you've had it or once you've been immunized, is that something that wears off, or does it confer a longer immunity? I know I'm asking sort of a convoluted question, but I've heard this come up just in schools where people that are working in our schools that are exposed to kids and families all the time, what does that look like for them?
If I'm following what you're asking, is if I'm continuously exposed to this virus and my immune system is continually fighting this off, is this going to be a problem for me? And no, our immune system fights things off. It's incredible that we are as healthy as we are, especially people that work around children. You are exposed to all kinds of different kinds of viruses and bacteria. So I don't think you're going to suddenly get immunodepleted or something like that. I think that if you are healthy and you're taking care of yourself and you don't have an immunodeficient illness, I think your body will be able to handle that. So if I'm understanding the question, did I answer that, what you were asking me?
Yes, and really does repeated exposure keep your immunity levels up? So, if you were exposed and got over COVID, and then on a weekly basis, somebody sneezes or coughs or, wipes boogers on your shins or something like that happens to elementary teachers.
Every
what
day.
is that doing? Yeah. What is that doing to?
Yeah, your antibody levels, and the reason they want you to wait for 2 months before you get this Omicron booster is because you do have circulating antibodies that will protect you, and you don't want to interfere with this vaccine that you're getting. You don't want to cause there any kind of interference for boosting that immunity. But after 2 months is when you want to get your booster vaccination. But I don't think that that is of any concern. Your body is going to prevent that from binding to the nasal areas. When it does bind, though, that's when you get the infection. So there's a difference from being exposed to actually having the disease. That's a different process for your immune system.
Excellent. Thanks so much. And thank you, Dr. White. I think you were here when the first commissioner used the word booger in a statewide broadcast. So you've done that with me. Thank you for enduring that.
I think it's a gold standard for elementary teachers.
We'll try and work it in more. Thank you, Dr. White.
Okay.
All right, let's go to our Eastern Kentucky visits. Okay, so Tony and I and Lou Young visited several Eastern Kentucky visits on a 2-day trip. We went to Jenkins Independent and Knott County and Letcher County on our first day. And then on the second day, we went to Breathitt County, Hazard Independent, Perry County, and Jackson Independent. So we had a wonderful visit with all of the superintendents leading those flood impacted communities. Really were both blown away by the level of devastation that you see. If you haven't visited the flood impacted regions, you really don't know. Pictures and videos just don't do it justice when you really see the magnitude of what they went through. And then also equally inspired by the way the communities and the schools and the people working in the school had pulled together to emerge from that. And even since we've been there, we've seen photographs coming out of schools, just the remarkable progress that is being made. So I'm pleased to report, and we base this on the weekly superintendent huddles we have with flood impacted districts, that all of the districts are either in school or they have a plan to start school here in September. So that's come a long way from where we were a couple of months ago, right after this first happened, when we honestly were not sure when school would be able to open. So for them to have gotten things cleaned up, flood mitigation, wastewater systems restored, other utilities restored, transportation restored, where they can get open, really is a testament to the way the communities have come together and all the supports that have come around them. So thank you to our Eastern Kentucky districts. We really admire the work that you're doing. And thanks everybody in districts across the state who pulled together to really support your colleagues and friends in Eastern Kentucky. It really also has been heartwarming to see the kind of outreach and support taking place. Still more to go. It's really going to remain this inch by inch recovery process, similar to what we're seeing with our Western Kentucky tornado impacted districts. They will also tell you that they're working their way out of the devastation that happened to their community. Recovery is steady, but it is a process and it's taking some time. We just wanted to update you on those visits to Eastern Kentucky. And with that, Tony, I think we turn it over to you for some communications updates.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Commissioner. And I apologize. I've got a little bit of a cold, so my voice is a little bit off, but I'll be able to struggle through. The first thing I want to remind you of, and this is open to all of our superintendents. So if you do want to tune in to our huddles, they are on Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time, and our next one will be this Thursday. But all huddles, if you are interested to seeing, how your colleagues in different districts are doing across the state, are available to be viewed on our KDE Media portal. And we send out a press release right afterwards, or usually within a couple of hours, that also kind of recaps what's going on. And I know that a lot of the superintendents have mentioned how grateful they are for all of the supplies and such that have come into their districts from across the state. So lots of kudos being given to many of the superintendents that I'm sure are listening in right now. Our next slide is just wanted to share with you some of the positive stories that are coming out of our flood impacted districts. This is one from Jackson County and the ATC, where they came up with a way to help of building these 8 by 16 foot sheds. And these are being delivered to families for free by one of the teachers himself. So lots of great things that are coming out of these stories. A couple of other good things I wanted to share with you, because there's been a lot of talk about our Grow Your Own programs. This was a feature we had featured on Kentucky Teacher from Owensboro Independent, talking about one of our teachers that has gone through the Grow Your Own staff program. and it really speaks to how the program is working in Owensboro. So I encourage you, when you get this this PowerPoint, if you want to read the story about this teacher and Owensboro's program, I encourage you to do so and to share that out. Today and tomorrow, we have a big meeting going on here at the Sauer Building at the Department of Education. It is our standard setting meeting for the accountability system. As many of you know, our test scores from the spring and the accountability results will be released here in about a month. Right now, we are planning to release them publicly on October 18th. And they will be available on an embargoed basis to the media who sign up for that. So this is just information. This picture is actually taken from the room this morning, and this meeting will continue today and tomorrow. Congratulations to Warren County's Rob Clayton. He is our 2022 Superintendent of the Year, named by the Kentucky Association of School Superintendents. He was named over I believe it was late summer at their annual meeting. And just a couple of stats there on Superintendent Clayton on this slide about his leadership and things that he's been able to accomplish in Warren County. So congratulations to Superintendent Clayton, and good luck with the national competition. On the state level, I want to just once again, congratulate all of our teachers who have been named a 2023 Valvoline Teacher Achievement winner. We are gearing up for a huge celebration next Tuesday in the Rotunda. For the first time in 2 years, because of COVID, we're able to have our 2023 Kentucky Teacher of the Year ceremony in person. So right there on this list on this slide, you will see all of our finalists for Teacher of the Year. So our next Teacher of the Year will come from Jefferson County, Hopkins County, Henderson County, Kentucky School for the Deaf, Newport, Clinton, Crittenden, Knott, Fort Thomas, and Woodford. So those are the teachers and the counties that they represent, and we're really excited to name our elementary, our middle, and our high school, and then our overall winner. The entire Teacher of the Year ceremony will be live streamed on the governor's website, which we will also share a link to. And if you're in the area and want to stop by, obviously the Rotunda is open to the public. Another piece of news I wanted to share with you is that we've been awarded a $3 million state assessments grant over the next 4 years to continue the development of United We Learn, in particular with the competency-based education model. So we are going to be, you'll be hearing from Karen in just a minute about the Kentucky United We Learn Council, and then also some of the other partnerships there that we are partaking in with this grant. We're really excited about this opportunity and to have some money to go with it. And with that, I will kick it off to Karen.
Thank you, Tony. So yeah, this is the United We Learn Council, and I just wanted to give you a little bit of background. I'm not going to go too deep into these first few slides because I think that you all have been well versed in the work that we've been doing over the past year and a half. But just as a reminder, it did start last spring with the Commissioner's Listening Tour, and that's where we did the empathy interviews to gather stories from folks throughout the Commonwealth on how they are perceiving education and such throughout the state. From there, we had you can go on to the next slide. Thank you. We had the Kentucky Coalition for Advancing Education, where we brought together over 60 stakeholders to do further empathy interviewing. And the output from that was to create the United We Learn report. That report really talked about where we were, so how people were feeling. We called those current state profiles, right? And then we asked them to look at what would it look like if this is how students feel today, if this is how teachers feel today, how do we turn things around? So any of those negative things that we may be seeing, how do we turn it around to create a better future for students, for teachers, for parents, etc. So that report went out, and then in November, we had the Education Summit. So that's when we really shared very broadly that report. Since that time, the work has not stopped. Tony just mentioned the grant. The grant was being developed pretty much right after that summit, but the work had already begun. Many of you know about or are even involved in the local learning laboratories. That's one initiative that is part of United We Learn. You may have heard of Deeper Learning. You may have been involved with Portrait of a Learner or creating different Portrait of a Learner models within your own districts or communities. These are all different things that have been going on. Right now, what we are doing is to look at developing a new council. So the coalition that existed last June has been sunset, and we now want to bring together a new set of stakeholders to move into that new vision. So when we hear about vibrant learning experiences for students, that's going to actually be a subcommittee of this council. So if you want to be a part of discussing what a vibrant learning experience for student looks like, that would be a great place for you to be involved. We know that this needs to happen through innovation, especially when we think about the accountability model. So if you have some innovative ideas, especially around accountability, that's going to be another subcommittee, and we would love to have you be a part of that. The third area is community involvement. And just developing this council, just like we did with the coalition, to bring in as many stakeholders as possible is part of all of this. So we want to take that even further. We really want education and our education communities to feel involved in what's happening. That includes businesses, that includes post-secondary education. I've gotten a lot of emails as our application opened up about, well, what about me? This is my background. What do you think of this? You know, should I apply? Should I pass this on to somebody else? The answer to all those questions is yes. We want you. Please apply and please pass it on. The next slide is just talking. Oh, sorry, this is my last slide. Oh, there we go. So that's exactly what I'm asking of you right now is if you could share that application. If you're interested in being involved, please fill it out yourself. We welcome those applications from all of you. We are asking that you forward them on to folks in your schools, to parents. I just met with the family engagement advisory group that we have here and the teacher advisory group that we have here, and ask them for, you know, how is it best for us to get this kind of thing to families or to other teachers. And some of those suggestions included, especially around parents, they said that Remind is a tool that a lot of districts use. So if you use that, we would love to have you use your Remind tool to get a link to this application out to your families. If they're used to looking at your website, we would love to have you put our link on your website so that they can apply for this. And if you need any more information about what this looks like, our United We Learn website is available. There's plenty of information out there, and you can always contact me directly if you have additional questions. And with that, I think I am turning it over to Dr. Glass.
Yeah, thanks, Karen, for that update on United We Learn. And we have a request of you, superintendents. Karen's gone over the major components that are within the United We Learn vision and how we arrived at those and some of the stories about how that process was built and efforts that we have underway to really keep this momentum going. And the big ideas that were contained within United We Learn center, again, around those meaningful, vibrant learning experiences for students, bringing innovation, especially around assessment and accountability, and involvement or connection with community and parents and the business community and students in ways that we haven't before. So those were the things that our communities lifted up for us as priorities across Kentucky for the future of education. We're often asked here at KDE, and I'm often ask this commissioner to about what are some of the practices that we have underway in districts. So where is some of this work taking place? And so what we'd ask of you now is to think about innovative practices that you have going on in your district, or something different that you're trying when it comes to this question of innovation, how you're trying to bring about some meaningful change in education that may be related to assessment and accountability, or maybe something else that your community is working on. So Tony sent out a Google form, Google Doc earlier, and asked that you participate in that. So that check your inboxes on that, and there is sort of a step-by-step form on there where you can put in some information. So we'd love for you to take the time and drop some of those responses into that document right now, and we'll just cover them. So I'll pause here for about 2 minutes and just see if we can get a few folks to put in some concepts or ideas of innovative things that you're doing in your district, so we can all see those, and it will help us at KDE again share the innovative practices that are taking place in your community. Thank you, Denise, that's in there. And thank you, Henry. Great. Henry Webb at Kenton County. Great. Josh at Metcalfe County. Thank you. John at Perry County. Anna, Floyd. Matthew at Owensboro. Great. Michael at Russell County. Excellent. Thanks so much. Barry at Casey County. Great. I see Jim at Henry County. Thank you. Sarah in Powell County. All right, Tony, if you could scroll up to the top again, we'll just read through some of these. So Denise, in addition to the work that she's doing just to get her schools reopened and back on their feet, Denise, again, it was a really inspirational visit to your community just to see the work that everybody's doing. She's also working on a STEM lab, dual credit courses, drama for middle school and high school students. Henry talked about CBAS year 2, 100 stakeholders engaged in our accountability work. Tremendous. It's right in line with the work of the United We Learn. Josh talked about expanding his work around his work-ready vocational partnerships, creative personalized scheduling. Tremendous. Matthew talked about continuing hosting visits for their innovation center. Jonathan Jett in Perry County, the teaching and learning pathway with Alice Lloyd College. Also, they employ some of their high school students to tutor students throughout the districts. Jim in Henry County talked about expanding apprenticeship opportunities. Anna's digital portfolio and the K3 L3 accountability model. We appreciate your work on that, Anna. Michael's talking about ready and excited about the grant from the U.S. Department of Education, the Wilderness Ed program. Yeah, we were thrilled to put together a letter of support for that. So we're excited about that too, Barry. Contessa in Muhlenberg County, classroom visits that are taking place in her community, learner-centered instruction practices that they're seeing. Sarah in Powell County talks about developing a new learner profile. It's in line with work that we've seen happen in several places across the state, and also the State Board of Education's leading into that work as well, following on what some other districts have done. Robert in Butler County's got STEAM work happening in his community. Matt Turner in Boone County hosting Friday Night Innovation Learning Network meeting at the Ignite Academy. I'm actually going up for that, and was also in Matt's community last night at the parent camp that they did. Great example of parent engagement and pulling that together. Let's see, catching up on a couple more of these. Nathan Smith in Hart County talks about the pipeline to the workforce program, dual credit courses, new engineering pathways, all great stuff. Wayne in Jackson Independent is partnering with the Hazard Community and Technical College, right there in town, just down the hill from his campus. Wayne, that was one of the districts that we visited as part of the flood impacted communities. And from Wayne's office, you can see part of where the flood waters came in there in Jackson. So great set of examples. Thanks everybody who's put these in there. We're going to hang on to this. And I love to be able, especially when our legislators ask about what are some examples of some innovative practices that we are seeing in Kentucky districts, to have these examples is really helpful. And Tony and I, we'd love to get out and see some of these in your communities. We are always looking for stories of how United We Learn is coming to life in your communities. And so hopefully you've seen some of the power of what our communications team can do in lifting up those stories and highlighting the good work that's happening in your community. We see it as a major responsibility from the Department of Education to shine a positive light on the things that you're doing and share how excited we are and how excited everyone should be about the work that's happening in your communities. So we thank you for this list. It's given us a bunch of great ideas, but if you ever would like to have someone from the department come out and feature and profile something that you're doing in your community, please reach out to Tony or I and do that. We'd love to do that work. It's a major effort of ours, major focus of ours. So please don't hesitate to do that. Tony, anything you would add to that request?
No, these are just really, really happy for all the participation, both in last month's question and this month's question. We'll have another one in October. So it really does give us a good example as we work on, tying in the programming and the vision that Kentuckians had for us with the work that you all are doing in your district. So thank you very much. And please reach out to me or my staff, and we will love to highlight that. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Tony. And thanks, everybody, for participating in that. Now let's bring on Dr. Byron Darnell from the Office of Educator Licensure and Effectiveness to give us some updates from EPSB and OELE. Dr. Darnell, go right ahead.
Thank you, sir. It's a mouthful. It's hard to get out. I just want to lead with gratitude to each and every one of you all. I cannot express how important the work that each and every one of you do every day within your communities, and especially those that are dealing with extenuating circumstances within the eastern part of our state. But seeing just the highlights from the work, it reminds us that there's always a reason to celebrate in education, and unfortunately it often gets overshadowed by so many of the darker areas that we have to work in each and every day. But just a couple minutes. I know a lot of talking at you, so I apologize. I will try to be very brief. But just a couple updates that I think might be of interest to you. Tony, do you have the slides there?
Yes, there should be. I've got Accelerating Accomplished Teaching in Kentucky, the national board one first.
Okay,
Is that right?
It's
okay.
Not showing up on my end, but that's fine.
Okay, let me reshare. Hold on.
It could just be me.
Okay.
There we go. Success.
Okay. All right. Just making sure.
Thank you. Just on, I know I've mentioned this a couple of times as a prelude, but it is finally live. Kentucky, as mentioned previously, was chosen as a state to pilot the MBCT process for early career teachers, and that targets individuals in years 1 through 3, whereas previously, in order to be considered for national boards, you had to have at least 3 years in the classroom completed. We are the pilot state, the only state that national boards is working with to see the impact that this process can have and hopefully will have on our early career teachers. So I will make sure in our communications we have a form to fill out as an application of interest. The grant itself will support 100 early career educators through the process, and it is an elongated process as opposed to the 1 year or 9-month timeline that we're used to. So you're looking at 2 years of support. And certainly in the time of needing to focus on retention and induction, this is a fantastic opportunity for individuals, 100 of them, to participate. So I'll make sure that in our communications, weekly communications, that we get the form link out to you. And also the contact within the department is Jocelyn Waddle. She is more than willing to talk with you and speak with you or email with you about this opportunity. So if you'll flip to the next slide, it just gives you a little rundown of the timeline. So as you can see, we are in the applications period, just gives you a little idea of sort of the outline of how they are starting this. This is fully supported by national boards. We are the technical assistants, but as the state being chosen to do this, it's an honor to be able to continue the work with national boards. And next slide, please. Just an FYI, so new teacher support funds are going out to all 8 co-ops. So this is a total of 2.8 million in whole, and that will be shared amongst the 8 co-ops across the state. And the co-ops will also be collaborating with educator preparation programs, also in order to best define and/or provide support for brand new teachers. So please be on the lookout for information coming from your local cooperative regarding how they might be able to help you support along with the education providers as the new teachers are entering the classroom. Excited that this opportunity is coming about. Again, retention being such an important factor in terms of making sure our early career teachers feel supported so they want to continue and have a long career that we hope in our classrooms and in our districts. But that money is finalized and will be going out very shortly. So just an FYI and a lookout on that. And then the next one, please. So the substitute teacher requirements. So like a lot of things, there's always a lot of information and misinformation that is easily spread. Even best attempts, it gets out there, but basically everything comes down to obviously if something is in statute, then it takes legislative change. If it's in regulation, then EPSB has some authority over that. With regard to substitute teachers from Senate Bill 1 in 2021, the special session, they expanded the qualifications for emergency subs during this past year, but that sunset at the end of the last school year. And so now districts are running into, and not surprisingly, finding themselves in difficult spots as far as their substitute pool. So what we have examined from our end is in House Bill 277, the language included emergency certified teachers could renew once again this year. So they were eligible for an automatic renewal. However, it didn't include the language of emergency certified substitutes. That is a little difficult because the two sound very similar, but they are different and defined differently in law. So what we are looking to do is broadly interpret that to include the emergency substitutes that were included with the at least either 64 hours of college credit or high school diploma or equivalent and 4 years of occupational experience related to education. So we will get an information through email to the superintendents regarding this change. We've met internally and talked with council just to make sure, but we believe that the interpretation of that can take us back to that pool of subs that were active last year. So the caveat being, we cannot include new subs under this, but you can re-employ substitutes that qualified for the high school diploma or equivalent years of occupational experience last year. So I do know that there are particular districts that will be able to go back and re-employ individuals that were previously in the substitute pool that are being bumped now as a result of that Senate Bill 1 sunsetting. So hopefully this will provide at least more reprieve in terms of the needs with substitutes. Know this is extremely important to each and every one of you all, and we are trying to move in a broader fashion of interpreting the law that was included in House Bill 277. So we will get communication out on that ASAP so that your HR and our CEC system will recognize that, and we can go ahead and allow you all to process the substitutes that were employed prior that fit that description. And I think, Tony, did you flip to the?
I think, are you looking for the new teacher support one?
Nope,
Or did
nope,
you?
we got that.
We're good.
All,
So you are
all
good to
that
go.
is good. Yes. So I appreciate your all's time. Just a few things to update you with, and excited to have a new Kentucky Teacher of the Year very soon. Cause for celebration. We also will have our Teacher Ambassadors application going live on September 15th. We have wonderful individuals across the state representing our profession. So again, lots of opportunities to celebrate, and opportunities for educator leaders all across the Commonwealth. So thank you all so very much.
Great. Thank you, Byron. We appreciate all your work and the work on behalf of everyone on your team. Let's shift over to Mickey Ray, our Chief Academic Officer, with some updates from the Office of Teaching and Learning. Mickey.
Thank you, Dr. Glass, and good afternoon, superintendents. We hope that you're having a wonderful start to the school year. I'll be very quick today. I just wanted to point out 2 opportunities for you that are existing from the Office of Teaching and Learning. The first, we have a new curriculum development process toolkit that has been released that did go out in the Commissioner's Monday message, but I wanted to talk a little bit more about the significance of that toolkit. So over the course of last year, we were able to partner with different districts across the state on a designing high quality local curriculum pilot for reading and writing specifically. So all of that, it's been such a privilege to partner with them and to learn with them as they complete the process of crafting their own local curriculum. And throughout that process, we have asked them to share different examples that may be helpful to other districts across the state. And so you can see there, we have communication examples, timelines, teaming structures. They have been willing to share some of their instructional vision statements around reading and writing that would go along with their local curriculum documents. They've shared the professional learning plans, and they also have recorded some video clips just around different stages of that process that we feel would be helpful to the larger field. So I wanted to draw your attention to that. And our professional learning coordinators have developed a self-reflection tool, and that's to help you think about where you are in the process currently and inform some of the next steps that you can take to move into the different phases of this work. And all of that lives on the Model Curriculum Framework webpage. That is linked for you there. But you would see the curriculum development process itself, the toolkit, and again, our PL coordinators have developed some professional learning modules to provide support for individual phases of that work. So wanted to share that with you. Excited to get your feedback on some of those resources as well. The next slide highlights a grant opportunity. So many of us are familiar with the Mathematics Achievement Fund, but we are offering mini grants this year connected to that fund, and they're very purposeful. So that grant was created to provide supports for diagnostic assessment and intervention services to students K-12. And so we are offering a mini grant that could be utilized for the purchase of materials needed for modification of instruction. So it's specifically focused around mathematics, but it could be utilized at Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3. So that will depend on your application and how you are utilizing and wanting to utilize the funding. It will be a one-time gift of $40,000. So if you're considering the purchase of instructional materials for mathematics, this could be a good opportunity for you. It also would cover the pay for extended time or release time for teachers who are engaging in professional learning around the resources that are selected. But I wanted to bring this to you today because there is a technical assistance webinar happening this week. So it's on September 15th from 10 to 11 a.m. All of that information is on the Competitive Grants webpage. It's linked here for you. And if you do have any questions around that, you can see there the contact information to provide support around your questions. So I hope that's helpful. Thank you again for the time. And I'll turn it back over to you, Dr. Glass.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thanks very much, Mickey. I think we've come to the question and answer phase. Tony, do we have any questions that have come in over the course of the broadcast?
Yes, we do, and it's surprisingly about COVID. So if Dr.
Okay.
White is still on, well, maybe it's related to both. I'll just read it. Based on information regarding attendance, why are we still quarantining individuals who test positive with little or no symptoms for COVID? I.e., we have treatments and we have vaccinations.
So I'm sorry, I got a bit. So you're talking about isolating people that are positive.
Yes, quarantining, correct.
Well, quarantining is if you've been exposed and you have to stay home, and we're not doing that anymore. So that's where I got a little bit confused. So isolation, and the right way I learned that is if I have it, I have to isolate. I learned that in medical school. Anything that can help you remember something you use it. So if I am actively infectious to other people, then that's when we recommend that people stay at home for the first 5 days. And if they're symptomatic at that time, then they can come back and be with others with a mask for a total of 10 days after that first diagnosis or symptoms. Now we are not requiring, and if you go back to that 3 columns, that 10, 5, 10 slide, there's nothing in there about quarantine anymore. So I hope that answers the question.
Well, the question's in the chat, and it really gets at why are we quarantining individuals who test positive but don't have symptoms? And I think the answer to that is because they can still spread the disease.
Exactly. I'm sorry, I didn't follow that. Yes, whether you're symptomatic or not, if your test is positive, then you are infectious and should protect others.
Right. And even though there are treatments and vaccinations that exist, we still have people that are of health risk, that the virus can get transmitted to them. And even with all the progress that we've made in keeping people out of the hospital, off ventilators, and dying on this, it still can happen. So I think that's the most direct answer. But I'm not a medical professional. Just check that's right with you.
You did very well, Dr. Glass. That's exactly right.
Okay, great. Any other questions that have come in, Tony?
I don't think so. And Dr. White, is the slide that I have up is that the one you were talking about, the 10, 5, 10 slide?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Just wanted to make sure I had the right
that
one.
used to include a column about a quarantine. If you'd been exposed, then you needed to do this, this, and this. With so many people having had COVID, so many people vaccinated at this point in time, we're not asking people to quarantine at this point. But if you have a positive test, then that's certainly something that you need to be careful about. The third column where it says if you've had close contact with someone, then you don't need to quarantine if you don't have symptoms. Wear a well-fitting mask if you're around people in public places, and stay home, of course, if you're sick, and the kind of common sense things. I just made a trip out of state and was in an airport, and I wore a mask at work just because I don't know what I was exposed to on that airplane, and I did not want to take a chance of exposing anyone else to anything. So that's my level of thought on that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. White. Tony, if we don't have any more questions, I think we'll bring this Superintendent webcast to a close. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We hope that the content was helpful to you. If you've got any feedback for us on any of this, please feel free to reach out to myself or Tony directly. We always appreciate hearing from you on if these webcasts were helpful. Our next webcast will take place on October 18th, so we look forward to that. And also, if there are any topics that you'd like us to consider for future webcasts, please also let us know those as well. We want to make sure that these webcasts are of value to you and a good use of your time. Thanks, everybody.